Whether your beer is in a bottle, can, or glass, kick back and relax. It's better on draft.
Oh, you're still muted, Ken.
Managed to do that. Let's try that again. Welcome, everybody. I'll cut that in post. It is Friday, May 31st, 2024. My name is Ken. Thank you so much for joining us tonight live. We are live every other Friday night for the most part at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. You could join us on Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, Kick, wherever. X, I think we're live on too. So go join us, chat with us, say hi, tell us what you're drinking. With that in mind, let's get a little introduction going, starting with Rob. Rob, what are you drinking?
Today I have from Terre Haute Brewing Company Citrogenesis, which has this awesome dinosaur on roller skates with a super soaker and stuff, but it is an American wheat ale.
And for myself, I believe every single one of these has blown up on me. But it is an amazing beer, so I've opened up every single one. It's already blown up, so you don't have to worry about that. But this is the 1845 alt beer from Arvin Brewing Company, and I'm going to be following up with the Detroit Dwarf alt beer from Old Nation Brewing. With that in mind, we do have a guest who comes to us from the future. That's right. It is currently May where he is. Why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us who you are, where you're from, and a little bit about yourself while I go find a napkin.
No worries. Well, you're close. It's actually June where I am, but yeah. My name's Greig.
What did I say? July?
You said May.
Oh,
it's May where you are.
It's May where I am. June where you are.
Yeah, the sun's out. It's unseasonably bright out there, but yeah. So yeah, my name's Greig, co-owner, brewer, and janitor at Brewaucracy in Hamilton, New Zealand. We're a little small. We'd be in your terms about 10 barrels. And we only brew about once every couple of weeks. So we're really small. We basically service our tap room, and that's it. We've got a few clients, a few accounts around Hamilton and nearby. But other than that, we just look after our locals and have a great time doing it. And sometimes I swan off around the world to come and drink beer with you guys, or at least with Rob.
Yeah.
All right. So you are in New Zealand, Hamilton. Why don't you give us a little bit of geography? Where in New Zealand are you based on the islands?
Sure. So if you're flying into New Zealand, I think you have to land in Auckland, which is the largest city in New Zealand, and it's at the top of the North Island. Well, not quite the top, but as far up as most people go. We're about 90 minutes drive south of them.
And what is the craft beer scene out in New Zealand? Is there, because what's I guess the big brand for New Zealand for beer as a whole? Like for us, we have Anheuser-Busch, Budweiser, Miller, Coors. What's the big brand for you guys? And then kind of like how many breweries do you have within the area, the territory?
Yeah, so New Zealand, it's kind of a duopoly, right? We've got Lion, Nathan, and DB Brewing, and they are kind of the two big players. There's also the ironically named Independent Brewing, which is the third big player and not independent at all. Together they probably have about 85% of the market, I would say. But that's pretty good. When I got into brewing many years ago, it was probably 99%. So it's growing. Craft brewing wise, where I am, there's only 4 breweries, and one is very small. They're a little nano brewery out by the airport called Hypnotic. Our Good George is our most well-known one. They're almost what you'd call a regional. They've got outlets all over the place. Then there's Bootleg and ourselves. So in chronological order, Good George was the first craft brewery. I think Hypnotic might have started a little while later, but they very much kept to themselves. Then there's us, and then Bootleg opened a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago now.
Is Hamilton like a touristy area, or is it just kind of like the general where most of New Zealandites? What's the terminology for a
Kiwis generally? Yeah, most people just call us Kiwis.
Kiwis. I'm not gonna lie, that kind of sounds like a slur. At least coming from where I'm from. So I'll just go with New Zealander. And
New Zealanders is fine. It's just a mouthful. But no, Hamilton is famously not a tourist destination. I think it's a pretty cool city. It could be a cool city. It's got a beautiful river running right through it. Is it the longest river? I'm asking my wife. She's sitting over on the couch over there. She says it is the longest river in New Zealand. But Hamilton famously kind of turns away from it and ignores it like it's not there. There's some cool river walks and things, but most of the buildings don't face it. It's got a beautiful. It's most known for some gardens, which sounds weird, but they are pretty impressive. Each one's decked out like a historical period or place on the planet, and it's pretty amazing.
I'm not going to lie, living in Michigan and being engaged to the woman that I'm engaged to, I've learned a lot about local gardens. And we have like the Meyer Gardens, the Dow Garden. They're all sponsored, of course, by major companies here in the state. So it's kind of interesting to see it, and you get to kind of see like the beauty of it being upkept. But I'm more of the, let nature run its course. I want things to be, unless it's my lawn, I want things to be overran. Like I want my lawn to be tall, but I don't want it on the sidewalk. I want it, edged and trimmed, ready to go. Before I pass it over to Rob, I have a quick question, and that is more so about the beer within New Zealand before we kind of get into your business. What are the current trends? What do the locals want to drink? What do they like to drink? Style wise, ABV wise, are you looking for, 18% Russian Imperial style, barrel aged bangers, or something different? Like what's the vibe out there?
Well, I'm looking for 18% barrel-aged stouts, but the vibe is very similar to the States. A lot of hazy IPA, a lot of anything IPA after that. There's probably a reasonable amount of people who are getting into craft beer and they want sort of easier drinking, lighter options. The NA thing and low alc thing is only just sort of starting to take off here. Seltzer never really hit. A few companies, notably Garage Project, you call them Garage Project, they tried to launch a separate brand, and I think it still exists, but you don't see it anywhere. Nobody's really into it. You'd be right at home here. You'd feel like, oh, this is the States, but maybe 5 years ago. So we haven't quite caught up to where you guys are hitting with lagers. When I was there last May, I was really happy to see so much lager everywhere I went, which was a really encouraging sign.
They do say every year it's going to be the year of the lager, and I believe it when I see it. Right now, we see it, but it's still not where I would like it to be. But Rob, go on.
I didn't see it in Grand Rapids, put it that way.
So the Hamilton beer scene, breweries around here kind of famously help each other out when difficulties hit and stuff. Do you guys have that same culture there? Is it kind of the rising tide ship's goal?
Yeah, absolutely. Like Bootleg, Fraser was one of the main founders of Bootleg, and I joke with him and with other customers. I say, well, Bootleg basically started here at the tap room because Fraser would come in every Friday, order some fish and chips, sit at the bar, and talk about how he should do it. And I said, well, don't listen to me. I'm not making any money.
Right.
But even Good George, who, I'm not going to say anything negative about them. I absolutely love them. They're personal friends of mine. Some of the brewers drink at our place. We drink there sometimes, but they have a rep among a lot of our customers as a corporate brewery. And so, but part of that's true. They're very good at business and marketing, and that's why they do well, and good on them. But they will still help you. And, if you need something, if you've run out of something, you could ring them up and say, hey, can we get some, I don't know, calcium sulfate or whatever? And they'll be, yeah, sure, man, no worries. And we've done the same for them. So it is that culture. We probably don't interact a lot as much as we should because we're all, other than Good George, all undermanned and busy all the time. So
Right.
we see each other once a year down in Wellington at the beer festivals, and then we tend to talk. But
Makes sense. Sounds like fun too.
Yeah.
So we'd kind of like to know more about what your beer journey has been. Like, where'd you get started? What was your first craft beer, and kind of how did it progress from there?
Right. You know what? I don't remember my first craft beer. I used to think it was from a little brewery that doesn't exist anymore called Pink Elephant, and they made a beer called Mammoth, and it was amazing. It was like a cross between a Scotch ale and a barley wine. made by an English expat who famously, he was so many people's first craft beer in New Zealand. When I first remember really getting into it was Galbraith's Ale House in Auckland in around 1997. And they were doing classic English style ales on cask, and it was just amazing. Just some of the best beer you've ever had. They're still there, and the beer's still great, even though they've gone through so many brewers now. From there, I just I became obsessed. I started learning everything I possibly could about beer. I didn't start brewing until around about 2002, and I had a friend, James, who's gone on to do huge things at the likes of Brewdog and so on in the UK. But we started brewing together at about the same time, and I like to joke that he's now good and I'm not. But in between all of that, I was working in IT, but just very passionate about beer. I helped found a national group that promoted craft beer and tried to get it on tap everywhere. And that ran for about, it only wrapped up sort of last year. It kind of, they went, well, that job's done.
Yeah, it's not
exactly.
99% anymore. Now it's 85%.
That's right. Yeah. And it seems kind of stuck, but that's okay. But yeah, I carried on working in IT. We had a little, the homebrewing thing developed, and a friend of mine called Joe Wood started up a homebrew store, and he'd tasted my beer and liked it and kept nagging me to, come and brew it at the store. And he'd started his own little label to put it out there. And we drove down to New Plymouth, where he was based, and brewed up a pumpkin ale with him, which I know you guys will so love.
Yeah, it's a good thing Dan isn't here.
I know, right? He's run out of bullets.
Yeah. Dan despises pumpkin ale with authority.
I've noticed. But anyway, so that was our first real release, was that pumpkin ale. That was our first commercial thing that we did, and it was a collab with Joe, who went on to, I think if I remember rightly, he made a apple crumble beer to match it or something. I don't know if you know what that is. Apple crumble, it's kind of like apple pie. Yeah, it's weird. I don't know.
But flat and deconstructed, right? Like like apple cobbler, probably.
That's it. That's exactly what it is. Apple cobbler. Right. Yes. So yeah, we were doing that, and I'd met my business partner Phil, who Rob called Dr. Ratio for his own reasons, and that's kind of stuck. And he had been, saying for a while, why don't we do something? Why don't we do something? So we started contract brewing out of a little brewery in Hamilton here called Shunter's Yard. They don't exist anymore, but the brewer's gone on to do other things. And he kind of said, well, let's make that happen. So we did, but it was never big. It was just kind of something I did almost as a hobby whenever I had time and energy on a weekend. So fast forward to about 2016, I'd almost ready to quit IT. I'd had enough. I was a bit burned out. You'll have heard this story before. And yeah, we basically just decided, well, I need to do something else. The only other thing I know I'm good at is making beer. Let's do that. So we found it. I took a year off. We found the building, built everything, got everything in, which was terrifying for someone who's never done it before. I've been around breweries my whole life, but never really had to build one. We finally got it up and running in 2018, and we've got a little tap room, and we haven't really tried to take over the world. We just tick along making beers, ideally not IPAs, but as time has gone on, we've fallen into the same trap that everyone else does, which is, that's what sells, and we have to keep our customers happy. So yeah, that brings us up to pretty much now, where I'm having a beer and not one of mine.
Yeah. So you said you're about a 10-barrel system. Was it hard sourcing equipment for that, or how was it?
Not at all. And again, I can thank Joseph Wood from Liberty Brewing. He basically helped us out. He'd just bought a similar brewery rather from China, and so he said, "Look, these are the things I'd change. This is the stuff that I shouldn't have done that I did. Here's what to ask for." And so it was very easy from that point of view to get the equipment right. The real learning curve came in running glycol lines and just dealing with the scale of everything, never having really done that much work at scale before.
Right.
10 barrels sounds small, but when you go to use it, it's bigger than you think.
Well, that's still 20 kegs. That's a lot of beer.
Yeah. Yep.
Which is 20 kegs you got to clean, 20 kegs you need 20 empty kegs for the
Yeah.
batch. Yeah.
Well, don't ask about the keg cleaning. That's a whole story in itself.
Sure. I was looking at your tap list and saw that you have a couple of IPAs. You have a hazy on there. You have a New
Yes.
Zealand pale, but then there were 16 taps. I think is what I saw, and you had 2 pilsners. It looked like you had a pretty good mix of beers. You try to keep it kind of spread out like that.
Yeah, it's really important to me to have a variety, and especially lesser known styles. It's really challenging though, because Hamilton it's quite a conservative place. It's a lot of dairy farmers, a lot of people who have grown up with mainstream beer, and we're in an area where there's a lot of blue collar sort of tradies, and they're always a bit suspicious of anything they don't know as well. So you've got to have, you've just got to have the things that sell, but at the same time, I don't want to sell my soul entirely. And part of my core mission will always be to try and expose people to, styles that are in danger of you not finding them anymore. So I will risk having something that takes me a year to sell through just to have it on tap. So I have to be careful about looking at styles that I can make that I know will still taste good 12 months later.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if Rausch beer would last that long or not.
We used to make one. It was called Smoko, but that was a little bit too polarizing. Smoko is Kiwi slang for taking a break. So like your tea break is called Smoko. So yeah.
Okay. That was a safety meeting, I think is what the brewery out of Illinois called it, except that is a specific kind of smoke break.
We Dark Horse over in Marshall, Michigan smells like a safety meeting. That's
the one, yeah.
Their version too, yeah.
Yeah. A very specific kind of smoke break.
Used to hey, it works for Lagunitas.
So I saw Liquid Wages on there. Is that a current attempt at educating people about beer, craft beer styles, and kind of the history of them?
Sort of. It's a very non-traditional beer. It was a collaboration that we did with Lallemand Yeast. I'm lucky that the local representative for Lallemand lives. I could throw a stone from here and hit his house. So he pops into the brewery a lot. He drinks there, and he had this idea for a collaboration where we'd get something unusual out of one of the yeasts. And I wanted to brew a Trappist single. So we tried to do that, and we worked on it, and it just didn't come out quite right. It ended up tasting, there was a lot of banana, a lot of isoamyl acetate. It just kind of came out more like quite a banana-y saison. And we thought, well, you know what? It's seriously drinkable, but that banana is just almost too much. Well, we gave it 2 months, and it just started tasting like the most amazing saison. So we just put it on the board as I think I called it a farmhouse ale or something. And initially I put it up as a wheated farmhouse ale because people expect banana in wheat beer, even though there was no wheat in the grist at all. As that faded, I took the wheat out of the name just because, I never feel comfortable particularly lying to people, but it was more trying to lie so that they know what they'll get.
Right. It's that important. Like that's the only reason styles actually tend to matter is you're kind of bracing the person for what they're going to get in their glass.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that I have heard stories about this, but I would like to know about your local trade organization, how it kind of works in New Zealand. Like we all in the States, each state has their own. The Indiana Brewers Guild, I think, is doing a pretty good job. They put on a couple of brewery festivals. They used to run a tap house, but right now that building is currently being renovated. So we drank there, I believe.
Yes,
the Tomlinson Tap Room. Yeah, we drank there. It was fun. So how is the New Zealand one? Is it broken down? Is it the whole country that it represents? How is that going?
It is the whole country. I think we're too small to have regional or based guilds or anything like that. The Brewers Guild is an interesting one. It still does have the big players on as members, and that's driven a little bit of division. There's some people who won't join the guild, and I was one of them for a while because I believed that there's just no way we can have the same interests in common. They just want to dominate every tap, and we just want to play in the pool. But they handle themselves very professionally. They don't put their noses in where they don't belong, and they generally give more than they get out of it. So ethics aside and motivation aside, it's been quite productive. The guild has in the last probably 5 years really stepped up. For a while, they suffered from what every voluntary organisation suffers from, which is high goals, but nobody has got the time to put their hands up to do anything. Under more recent management, they've been very proactive and just, really driving the interests of brewers, especially a lot talking to the government and trying to get excise tax lowered, and which is a passion of mine, and things like that. So no, I'd say they've probably got a long way to go. I still don't think, I'm not even sure if half the breweries in New Zealand are members of the guild. If any brewers are listening today, then yeah, please consider joining. We get a lot of value out of them. They do a lot of very good stuff, especially around regulatory things, like our food safety compliance and our occupational safety and health. You guys call it OSHA, I think. We have something similar. They've got templates for all of that you can just plug in and follow, rather than having to wade through government websites and try and pick out something useful. So it's, I think they're extremely valuable, and they're only going to get better. That was the end of the paid advertisement for the New Zealand Brewers Guild.
That's right. Yeah, and I was just listing the stuff that I get advantage out of as a drinker from the Indiana Brewers Guild. I have seen that they do stuff with legislation and all that, and I pay attention to some of those things, like upping volume that they're allowed to produce and all that. So it's good to hear that a trade guild is actually helping, instead of just taking dues and kind of trying to help. Maybe it's something visible, at least to you guys. Maybe they'll help New Zealand sort out. I saw on your website that New Zealand doesn't know what a tap room is.
No.
So maybe they'll help get that sorted out.
Well, that website's probably due for an update. It's I think they're figuring it out now.
Okay, excellent. Well, that's progress.
Yeah, exactly. I will. Yeah, one thing, I don't think we have the challenges that you all have over there in terms of our regulatory environment, because we're just one country, not a bunch of federated states. There's not different laws that apply to everybody. So while we may disagree with some of the regulations that we're forced to live with, most of them aren't born. There's not many weird historical rules, like, you can't have a beer on a horse in a bar, or some of the ones that you guys often talk about as weirder examples of things you can and can't.
Well, I guess has New Zealand ever gone through a prohibition?
Yes, we have. And it didn't. The last holdouts only ended in my lifetime. There were still a couple of dry areas in New Zealand when, I was born in 1975, and there was, I think, the King Country was still, which is just south of me, was still dry. I might have that wrong.
We do still have dry towns and counties here in the United States, but typically a lot of these laws are either old laws that never really, got updated because nobody cared to enforce them, and therefore nobody cared to change them. But a lot of them also came out of prohibition, regarding transfer of beer sales. What can go to a bar, what can a bar do, versus, like, for us, like, we have a brew pub versus a tap room, which are two completely different things here. Because, like, a brew pub can bring in outside alcoholic beverages, whereas a tap room cannot. But you could in bond. Like, there's so many regulations and changes and stuff that happen within the US. Is there any regulatory issues that kind of hinder your growth, or are you not necessarily seeing that quite yet?
There's not as much, that's for certain. The biggest regulatory issue we have is purely taxation. If I sell a keg of roughly 6% beer for about $350, $100 of that is tax, just pure tax. So it makes it very hard to make margin. And then we sell it on, the tax gets put on, obviously, when we sell it, because we're not going to lose that. And then the retailer buys it and they mark it up again. And then they put what's called GST on that, which is kind of like your sales tax. And so that the poor customer at the bar is buying a beer for maybe $15 New Zealand, of which maybe $6 or $7 of that is just pure tax.
Is that how your session beer got its name?
Yes, that's exactly right. If you make a beer that's 2.5% or under, you pay per volume of liquid rather than per volume of ethanol you've produced. So for example, 100 liters of 2.5% beer at a very low rate of excise. So it works out great for everyone.
So
that beer is called tax evasion. Just
that's right.
For the Americans listening, 350 New Zealand dollars is about $215 US.
Yeah.
So you're looking at $250 for the keg New Zealand, and then another 100, which is 40%. Jesus. That definitely hurts my head. So is your guild fighting against that? Is anybody looking to try to get that done? You kind of mentioned, being in a conservative area kind of confuses me, because at least here in the States, conservative means low tax, low that, but then again, it's considered a sin tax. SIN, not SYN, sin tax.
Yeah.
We did make tech reference earlier, so just got to make sure we're on the same page here.
right.
But what's the look within your government, what's the belief out there regarding that tax? Is it too much?
Every single brewery thinks it's too much, and I would argue that the majority of customers would think it was too much too if they knew that it was as much of a thing, but they're not that educated about it in general. And
well, not to cut in, but what about the import tax for when you get stuff? Does Lion brew on the island, or are they brewing somewhere else?
They brew locally. Lion are in New Zealand and Australia, and I think Asia as well. But yeah, they brew locally. How excise tax usually works is you pay it at the point of ingress into the market. So if I brewed beer here and sent it to the US, I wouldn't pay the excise tax on it at all. You guys would pay whatever your local rate is for the state that it was being imported into. So you'd get really cheap beer because we've already absorbed the cost of having it, basically.
What about import tax for, like, how are you competing against these outside breweries? So not necessarily Lion, but like Anheuser-Busch wants to ship a bunch of beer, or you're close enough to Hawaii that maybe Modern Times / oh God, what's the Hawaiian company that bought them? Kona. Yeah. Come out, or like a Japanese brewery comes. Like, how do you guys compete against that? Is there a decent enough tax on that?
It's not really an issue. I mean, as I said, they will be paying the same tax we are because they're selling into this market.
Okay,
so that's what we pay. But it's not really a thing. I mean, you'll see the same international brands here that you see everywhere. American mass market beer is not really here for whatever reason. I mean, I can find a box of Bud if I look hard enough, but it's kind of considered almost thought of as craft beer here, because it's like, oh, it's rare and it's imported. We don't. Yeah, it's not a thing. But you'll see Kirin and Asahi everywhere. Just trying to think what other brands. A lot of the Asian brands, Singer, Tiger, those sort of things. You'll see them everywhere. I don't know why some are here and others aren't. That it's just whoever controls those import companies, I guess.
It's interesting to hear, because when we interviewed, years ago, and when I say years ago, I mean like 8 years ago, we interviewed a gentleman who used to own a beer store in Japan. And he used to talk about all of the beer that they would get from the US, typically from like Stone, like the West Coast, and like getting those West Coast IPAs and trying to sell it the second they got it. So when we hear this and we deal with organizations like we've had Brew Export on, who does exports into the UK, trying to see where American beer gets and how they get to. But it's interesting to see that you guys don't necessarily get our big dogs. Do you get some of our smaller big dogs like Dogfish Head, Sam Adams? I doubt Yingling, Stone.
No. They're treated almost exactly the same way. We'll get them in small shipments occasionally, and you'll have to go to a specialty beer store to get them. The corner store will not have any of those brands, so unless there's been some at some point on the market.
It's really relying on you guys then to create these brands and show them the different styles that exist within the realm of craft beer.
Yeah, I mean, New Zealand, for all that I just said, we don't have a lot of imports. That is how the beer culture grew in New Zealand, because a very small amount of people were bringing in a very small amount of very diverse beers. Someone
Oh no,
from Chimay or something, and everyone would be all over it. I see I'm being trolled.
So in our Twitch page, somebody asked, which beer are you most proud of and why is it Stockholm Syndrome?
Well, do you know what? I'm going to take that and I'm going to say, I am quite proud of Stockholm Syndrome at the moment because it's a style I hate making. Well, actually, that's not true. This is going to sound weird for a brewer to say, but I don't care what I'm making. It's all brewing. It's all fun. I enjoy all of it. Making hazies lets me use some different techniques that I don't usually do. I've struggled with using, getting a good one. And this current batch we have on now, I will actually drink it. And that's rare for me. So yeah, I am proud of Stockholm Syndrome.
Were they being trolly because it's a New England IPA, or?
I suspect they're trolling because it's somebody who knows me and they know how much I've ranted about hazy IPAs in the past.
Ranted in a good way or a bad way? Like, what's your bad way? Okay,
yeah, so I feel they really dumbed down the beer industry. I don't have a problem with any style inherently and of itself, and I don't. Even though I don't tend to drink hazy IPAs, it's not like I want them to go away. I just worry that we've now got a bunch of beer consumers who will walk into a bar and not even try or taste anything. They just say, what hazies do you have? And you say, well, we've got this really cool, like, try something else. Would you like to taste something else? It's free, Would you like to try this Saison? What's a Saison? You'd have never heard someone who identified as a beer geek say, what's a Saison 10 years ago? And hey, maybe I'm an old man yelling at clouds like people always tell me I am. But so nothing inherently wrong with hazies. I don't think there need to be quite as many of them as there are.
So one of the things I was happy about your tap list is that you had only 2 IPAs, the one hazy, a couple pale ales, but it's not like most of the breweries around here. The tap list will be all hazies or all IPAs or something like that.
Yeah. But I'm still jealous of, as I was saying to you the other day, one of the reasons I love visiting the States is because you've got the population, you've got the diversity. So sure, 70% of them might be like that, but you can find a place that's only doing lagers or a place that's, only doing European styles or something. And that's cool. I have so much respect and admiration for that. And the other thing that really blew me away, and Ken, you'll like this as a Michigander, the whole Grand Rapids, man. I mean, it's not much bigger than Hamilton in terms of population. And we were there, I think, Alex, on a Sunday and a Monday? Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So not exactly prime drinking days. And everywhere we went, every brewery we went into was either comfortably full or heaving. And I was just like, how do you get, if you did that here, if we even opened on a Monday, nobody would come in. And I'm just impressed by how Americans have embraced that market and how much they seem to love it and respect it. And I wish we could have some of that here. New Zealand seems to be very, what are you going to do for me? Whereas the US seems to have embraced craft brewing, or just brewing. I don't really like the craft term, but just brewing and gone out and supported the people who are making great things.
Here's the thing with Michigan that I think a lot of people in the States at least understand is that we are the biggest homers in the world. We will not only brag about our beer, but we will put our money there. Like, we love, we don't do Lay's potato chips. We do Better Made. That's our potato chip brand from Michigan. We don't do Coke and Pepsi. We do Faygo. If you're an ICP fan and you're listening to this, you know what Faygo is. That's our soda brand. We don't do Breyers. We do Stroh's. We have our brands of a lot of these things. So we care a lot about what comes from Michigan. If you made a beer that said this is a Michigan hop, Michigan malt, Michigan yeast, Michigan ingredient, it will sell because you said not only is it Michigan made, but it's Michigan products. So we are we're also a huge agriculture state. So a lot of people want to drink what they, locally, they want to do, support locally. And as the older generations are kind of phasing out and the newer generations are coming in, even those newer generations who are drinking less still want to drink something craft, something local, something, new and interesting. And with Michigan, we have over 400 breweries, especially if you download the Michigan Brewery Map app free on iOS and Android devices. You do have to be in the United States to download it. You cannot download it outside of the US. But you're going to be able to listen, the code's for sale if you want to make your own for New Zealand, the New Zealand Brewery Map app. We just are very, very, we promote it. We are there to stand by it, especially after COVID, and I know COVID really hit the States different than like Australia, New Zealand, that area, because we both kind of reacted different to it. And as we saw a lot of these places start to go under, and like we're seeing how much they need us. And I think a lot of people are starting to now go to those places. What you noticed in Michigan that you really didn't, I don't know if you got a chance to see, but if you go to Jolly Pumpkin, that's all sour beers, whole sour house. But if you go, 2 doors down to Arctos Meadery, and that's all hard mead and cider. You go 2 blocks over to Kuster Brewhouse, and that's all German style beer. Like,
you're naming all the places we went.
you have this really interesting thing within Michigan that if you hit a niche right, you're going to go on and you're going to succeed. Like, I'm trying to think of here in Michigan, like Brewery Face On does a lot more true to style beers. So a lot of people will seek that brewery out because they're going to be doing ESBs, milds, triples, like your Belgian style, your German style. People go to Dragon Mead because they've got 50 taps and it's probably 40 different styles, not just 50 taps, but 40 styles. So it's not like 50 taps and 40 are IPA. So I agree with you that finding your market is good. But here, at least in Michigan, if your beer is bad, you're not surviving.
Yeah.
So there is no way to really survive on bad beer, even if it's Michigan beer. Yeah. We don't like Better Made because it's, trashy. We like it because it's delicious and greasy and it just tastes so good. It's the same with Verner's. I don't know. You probably don't get Verner's out there, but that's our ginger ale. And it's like a lore in Michigan that Verner's cures everything. You have a stomach ache, you drink some Verner's. You have stage 4 cancer, you drink some Verner's.
You broke my wife in the background. She liked that one.
You're laughing, but that's our cultural Vicks vapor rub. Yeah. Like Vicks is a thing that kind of cures everything. That's what Verner's is. So, you got a chance to try Grand Rapids, but that's to be honest, and a lot of people will probably give me shit for this in the chat. Grand Rapids is old beer. Grand Rapids is old fucking beer. Kuster Brewhouse is good. That's kind of newer, but if you branch out further, like if you got a chance to go to Three Gatos, which is, so Three Gatos was in Wyoming, Michigan, not Wyoming, the state, but Wyoming, Michigan. And the guy is from Brazil, learned how to brew in Germany, and then bought a brew house in Michigan. Like,
it's quite the journey.
The weirdest story ever, but Linus makes so good beer, but he also makes an amazing Kolsch. Like, he's making these styles that you would love because they're not New England hazies. They're not, West Coast IPAs. So that's kind of like I get on a soapbox all the time. You listen to the show, so you hear it. But that's kind of my response to you is that within Michigan, like, we're just massive homers. And I don't know if that's the same for New Zealanders, because it kind of sounds like it. If it ain't New Zealand,
it really is. Yeah. Kiwis. It
still sounds like a slur. I can't say it.
Yeah, if anyone mentions New Zealand on our news, on our national news on television, all we want is what do you call it? Validation from the international media. It's both embarrassing and depressing, but hey, it's true. It happens. And also, thank you, Ken. You've just explained Tigers fans to me. So appreciate that.
Like Detroit Tigers?
Yeah.
Or isn't Hamilton Tigers a thing?
Oh no, well they might be. We don't have. No, we've got.
We have a Hamilton up in Ontario, which is right by us, which might be the Hamilton Tigers, which might be a Canadian football team. Yeah. So that's. I mean, we're Detroit Lions fans. Okay, we still are fans of the team. even before last year, we were still fans. So you got to love the city. You got to love the state to understand a little bit more about Michigan. Before I pass it back to Rob, so you mentioned Grand Rapids. Have you been able to travel to other cities in the States or other cities in the world that you've liked drinking beer in? What are some of your favorites?
Yeah, I mean, I've spent more time in the States than anywhere else just because in my IT life, I ended up there every year for a conference in Las Vegas. And so, why just stay there? Why not go visit other places? Chicago is probably still my favorite drinking city.
Was it CES by chance?
Was it CES, the conference?
Yeah, the conference.
No, it was a thing called Kaseya, which was I won't get into it.
That's fine. I was just curious because a lot of people say they're going to CES, but really it's the Adult Video Awards. So, I was trying to set you up, but it didn't work. So continue.
Sorry,
Chicago.
I wasn't aware. Yeah, I'm not a big porn guy. I just
That's what they all say.
Yeah, that's what they all say. Also, I did tell you my wife's sitting right over there. So.
Hey, we're all sex positive. I mean, I'm sex positive.
I don't know what she's downloading right now, but yeah. So as I said, Chicago is probably my favorite drinking city. I've always loved the city. Big Cubs fan, obviously. Rob knows.
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, everywhere I go, the Bay Area is great too. I mean, I spend a lot of time there. We usually stay in Oakland whenever we go and don't get shot. It's just got a great brewing scene. I do, for all that I complain about IPAs, I do love a good West Coast IPA, and they're making some of the best in the world there right now. So it's pretty good to taste. But Michigan, man, I want to go back. As I said, my only taste was Grand Rapids. We were going to head down to, where's Kalamazoo? We were going to head down to Kalamazoo. I couldn't find it looked like a 20-minute, half-hour drive, but I couldn't find a bus that would get there and back in a reasonable time. And
public transportation. Yeah, there's no such thing as public transportation in Michigan.
I know.
So you're better off getting a car the next time you're in town. And the reason for that too is that while we do not have, and a lot of people might give me shit for this, we do not have a good beer walkable city. The most
Grand Rapids.
Yeah, I was going to say, I found one, but
you can do Grand Rapids well, but it's nothing compared to Seattle's like North End over by Ballard or Fremont.
Ballard is where we stayed.
You can't do against Asheville, North Carolina. Yeah. Even Columbus a little bit. Like Grand Rapids sure can be walkable, but you're not getting to the amount of density as you are with these other cities. But the issue is that like I want to tell you all these places, like we have easily one of the best peanut butter porters in the world at a place called Jade and James, but you got to drive to there. Three Gatos, which is in Wyoming, just outside of Grand Rapids, you got to drive to there. Cooster, you went to Cooster, but they also have a sister brewery called Cedar Springs in Cedar Springs, Michigan. You got to drive to there. So within Michigan.
Sorry, Ken, just to interrupt. They had all the Cedar Springs beers on tap at Cooster.
Oh, good for them. Good for them.
A bunch of them. So and they were fantastic.
Sadly, I tried to go there on Memorial Day weekend, which was literally this past Sunday, and they were closed. So I've had them plenty of times at our local beer festivals, but we wound up going to a different bar, which was a happy hour all day, and I was getting Boombas of Oberon, which I was fine with. And then we went to Boomba's a 32-ounce glass.
Oh, right. Okay.
So it's a big glass stein.
Like a liter, right? About
probably, I don't know. That's the metric system. I
like your freedom units. It's fine.
Yes, it's freedom units. So we went to New Holland though, which was a really nice spot. Which we had a blast with over at New Holland, which they have spirits there too. Can you guys do spirits and beer and stuff at the same facilities? Okay.
Yep. A license is a license. You could, if you've got an alcohol license, they don't care what you sell. So.
But do they care what you make?
No.
Really?
I can distill if I want. I can make spirits. I can make wine. I can make cider. I don't, but I could.
You said that. Sorry, you said there's one tax break at 2.5. What's the next one?
Do you know what I don't know? Because we've never gotten that high.
Okay.
I think it might be like 22 point something percent, but I
Sounds
had
like
a
an
whole.
ice box is in your future.
Ooh. I had. Oh, there we go. Nearly a liter. So thanks, Capri Sun 98. You're awesome. Even if you troll.
Chris Connor on our
Yeah,
YouTube
nice
page.
I have accidentally. Oh yeah.
Oh, there we go. Sorry, you're kind of breaking up a little bit with your internet. But Chris Connor over on our YouTube page mentioned, don't be sorry, it's okay. It's the internet. You're in IT. Stuff just sometimes doesn't work because it doesn't want to work. Muskegon has a good social district. One of the things that came out of COVID is that Michigan, as well as many other states, started introducing social districts, which allows you to take a beer to go. Do you have any open intox laws within New Zealand where you can kind of walk from bar to bar or walk in the park or something with an open container?
Now, this is where you've made a liar out of me. I said before that everywhere's the same. Yeah, local city, they're just called city councils, can declare alcohol-free areas, and most do. So I think there's one right outside our brewery. So if you walk out of the brewery with an open container and you turn left, you're fine. If you turn right, you're breaking the law. So yeah, I mean, I haven't seen it enforced unless people are being idiots. I think it's used by the police to go, you know what, you're being a dick. Let's just, you've got an open container, so we'll bust you.
I'm a big fan of drinking districts simply because it stops from chugging. Like how many times have you gone with a bunch of friends and you're bar hopping and you order a beer and they're like, oh, we're leaving. And you're like, well, shit, I'm not going to not drink this. So you slam it. Well, now you can kind of take it and go.
Yeah, something, Rob.
Yeah.
We literally, I'd just gone to the bar and it was a chili beer too. It was like a habanero spice.
Oh, so you even want that to warm up a little bit too, so you can get that heat.
Oh, I destroyed it, and I think it destroyed me.
I enjoy these kinds of things that happen due to COVID that kind of created better laws within the states, but there's still plenty more to go. You mentioned that before I pass it back to Rob, you mentioned that you don't like hazies. Are there any other trends that you weren't too fond of?
Just trends in general, really. I just want to live in a world where we drink what we drink when we want to drink it, and we don't care what's cool or what isn't or what everyone else is doing. And I feel that way about everything in life, really, but beer as well. I mean, be your own person. Don't feel like you have to drink what everyone else is drinking or what's cool.
Okay, but then what's a trend you want to see?
Well, I'd like to see, just selfishly, I'd like to see more lagers. I always do. And as I said to you, I think it is happening. I'm not going to go so far as to say it's the year of the lager. But I do think they're finally busting out. Kyle, I hate you. Hazy's forever. I used to work with Kyle. He knows.
For those of you that don't know, we are live over on Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, plenty of places. Of course, you can join us live if you're listening via the podcast. Join us on Friday night starting at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. But yes, you love hazies, which we know. What else?
Yeah, English styles are another one I'd love to see more of, just because session drinking is great. I love going to a pub and just having six pints of something with some great company and not getting completely hammered. It's hard to have 6 imperial pints of, 12% barrel-aged barley wine or something,
Well, I'm definitely for the smaller ABV beers. As I'm kind of looking at the beers that are on my desk right now. Like I've got, while I was getting ready for the show, a Hop and Frog Imperial Mexican Lager, which is 9%. The Detroit Dwarf is
fucking lager. What?
Yeah, 9%. It's an Imperial Lager with a dash of chipotle pepper.
But it's Hop and Frog. That's just the thing they do.
I don't think I've had any of their beers.
So Hop and Frog, their lowest ABV beers, I believe, are their Turbo Shandies, which are 6%. They came onto our show. This would have been like 7 years ago. And they brought in a bunch of beers because they were just getting into Michigan. So they wanted to introduce Michigan, everyone in Michigan to Hop and Frog. So they came on our show and just every single beer. And I'm looking at it. It's like 7%, 8%, 12%, 14%. I'm like, can we have anything that's Just a little lighter. So I'm with you. I'm all for the whole sessionable beers, table beers, beers that you can. I would love, because I don't have the liver as I did when I was a 25-year-old, to be able to do 12 beers and not feel like complete ass. Because I used to be able to crush 3 pitchers of Miller Lite at a bowling alley, and it was just nothing. Just
Hop and Frog does also have those small cans, so it's a mark in their favor.
Oh, that's cool. We've got a brewery here called Urbanaut. Shout out Urbanaut. They do some cool stuff, and they came out with these range of blenders. So it was 2 different beers in 2, I don't know, maybe 8-ounce cans. So the tiny little cans. And the idea was you'd mix them, and which was really cool. And then they've kept the cans. So now they're releasing stronger and crazy things in these small cans. So you can go and try something.
From the chat, Chris wants to know, what is our favorite style of pour? So he's like a cask pour, a nitro pour, a regular pour, a side pull. So I guess we'll start with you. Like, do you have like a favorite style that you like to drink, or you seek out if you see at a bar or brewery?
I guess it's complicated. Like there's not really a style that I care, a pour style I care about, but if I see an English bitter and it's on how it should be, either gravity from the cask or out from the cask via hand pull, I'm going for it. I'm just going for it. If there's the perfect style, the perfect pour for the perfect style of beer, I'm all over that, and I will have that every time. Nitro is probably the only thing I'm a bit wary of, just because it for me, it often washes out a beer. I know the idea is to make it creamy, but for me, it often washes out a lot of the flavor and a lot of the body of the beer while it does it. So I tend to avoid things that are on nitro unless someone said to me, hey, you need to try this on nitro, in which case, I think, we were at New Holland, you were talking about before, and some of their nitro pours were really amazing. And I didn't think they were going to be, but they were. So
yeah, if you can get, even if it's nitro or cask, like if you can get it to where it pours the right temp, and creamy is a great word for it. Like we had, speaking of New Holland, Dragon's Milk. I had Dragon's Milk on hand pull, and it was one of the best beers that I've ever had. I still talk about it to this day. It's one of the few times I used to work in restaurant tech, and I would never drink at any bar, restaurant, brewery, wherever I worked. I would never drink there. And this guy literally knew how much I loved like craft beer. And he said, when are you done? And I said, well, I'm leaving at 6. He goes, okay, 6:01, you come find me. And then we're going to go into the back room and you're going to have a sample of this. And he gave me a little sample of it. And I wound up like breaking my own rule and having a pint right then and there. What about you, Rob? Is there a style of pour that you are more eager to drink if you see it?
It's that ESB on cask. It's just something about it. So there's one place we didn't get there. Greg was in Indianapolis with Alex, and we had a wonderful time. Very walkable city, right? Very
walkable beer it is. Yeah. But back there next year.
Yeah. But there's one place we didn't get to up in Broad Ripple, and they pretty much always have an ESB on cask. And I have biked there for my birthday more than once, and we'll get an ESB. And Indiana is a great state sometimes, but we are allowed to get our beers to go, and so I will just there's a sandwich shop down the way. I'll get a nice sandwich, I'll get a nice beer, and I'll go sit in the park, and I will have a nice cask pull beer and a sandwich. Just
amazing.
Yeah, somebody in the Michigan Craft Beer Discord, if you look at the show notes of this show, you'll be able to see and join. But they're in Seattle right now. They're actually at Bottle Works, and I suggested to go to Machine House. And if you've never been to Machine House, it's a full beer engine system bar, meaning everything's hand pull, everything's cask. It is such a great place to go drink, and they have ESBs, and they'll do an IPA, and they'll do other beer styles on cask for you to try, but it is easily one place I probably could have just only went there and been completely fine just doing pints of, because we all know I don't like flights of beer. I am on that. Chris Connor also said, if you like cask pour, check out Brass Ring. Again, it's something you got to drive to in Grand Rapids because it's such a large city. Wendy, who is out right now, she is unable to make the show, says sometimes you want a beer, not a buzz. which kind of goes after the whole fact that you just want to drink. You want to drink, you want to be part of the social part of it, but you don't want to get completely tanked. And that's probably the only reason I utilize Untapped these days, is just to make sure I'm staying within ABV range. How does Untapped in New Zealand, like, do you have beer snobs who think they know everything about beer like we do in the US, or is Untapped at least a lot friendlier over there?
Oh no, I've been one of them.
Oh,
I spent the last sort of 5 years trying to be less of one of them.
I think you have the cred, though.
Yeah, well, see, maybe there's certainly people I know who are good friends of mine who are way smarter about this shit than I am. But in fact, while I was on that trip, Rob, I think I was with you at the time. I got to 10,000 beers, which was the maximum badge that they've got until they come out with a 20. And I kind of went, do you know what? I'm done. I'm kind of done. I still use the app occasionally if I'm checking in something I really want to remember. But for the most time, like I've never really commented, because it takes you away from the social aspect of drinking. So they're playing with your phone when you'd rather be listening to the people you're with. But it was quite freeing when I got to 10,000. I thought, you know what? I don't have to do this anymore. I never did, but it took that to do it. But yeah, you definitely, especially when I'm working in the tap room, which is theoretically rare these days. Even if I'm just there hanging out, you can tell the type. They come in, they're the ones who order. There'll be 5 of them, and they'll order 5 flights, making our poor bar manager kill herself. And they'll take them to the corner, and they've got their phones out before they even sit down, and they're typing in the beer. And I'm like, I want to be angry, but I've been them. And when I'm traveling for beer, I will still order. I'm sorry, Ken, this is going to trigger you. I will still order flights when I need to get through. When I'm at a brewery and I've only got so much sobriety in me for the day, but I've heard great things about this brewery, and I really want to take the time to sit down and get to know these beers. So I don't just go, shoot it, check it in, done. I really do sit, even with that small pour, and think about it a lot, and think about how it's making me feel and what I enjoy about it and the rest of it. So, and I always apologize to the poor servers who have to pour it for me. And boy, do I tip them.
We did do that bourbon flight in Kentucky, too.
We did do that. I feel like he talked us into that bourbon flight.
He did talk us into the bourbon flight. He wanted to pour it.
I've had plenty of flights when it comes to booze too. When it becomes a rare pour, I'll buckle down for a flight, because I want to be able, because I don't, if I'm going to want a 1.5 ounce or a 2 ounce dram of a specific whiskey or something like that, like I want to be able to at least try it at a discounted price before I go for it. Because some of these whiskeys, like I remember doing in over by Fenway in Boston, there is Hojoko, which is an amazing Japanese bar and restaurant. And when I went in there, if you're not a big Japanese whiskey fan like I am, they had Hibiki 18, Hibiki 21, and oh my gosh, it's a 22. I can't think of the third one, but they had these, and I'm like, man, I really wish I could, because I don't want to spend $75 on a 1.5 ounce pour right now. And they're like, oh, well, you know what? I'll cut the price in third, and I'll give you 3 half-ounce pours. And I'm like, you do that? And so he gave me 3 half-ounce pours, and Hibiki 17 is like one of my favorite whiskeys. So I said, that's still one of my favorites. I'm going to get a 1.5. So he sold a shot after he gave me not a discount, but priced at 1/3, for a half-ounce pour. So I think there are proper places for when flights need to exist, but I'm here to want the small pours. I don't want flights anymore where you have to get 5 or 6 or 4 beers. I want to be able to drink 1 or 2 half pours and move on with, like, that's what Old Nation does. Old Nation does, I think 6 ounce pours or 5 ounce pours. They don't do flights. So you can go to Old Nation, the brewery, you can get a 5 ounce pour, and that's it.
I'm okay with that. I think that's
I
good.
was somewhere they had just gotten all the Abraxas in for the season. I did not expect that, and so they were doing an Abraxas flight of all the flavors.
Yeah, when you're getting into something that specific, like we have Perrin, No Rules, or Goose Island, like Bourbon County, like for a special event, sure. But if I'm going to, Brewaucracy over in Hamilton, New Zealand, like I just want a pint or two. Like, I don't want to have to, I don't want to get a flight and upset your server to have to pour a flight and pour me a flight. And of course, when you're with Wendy, she's got like an entire strategy system of what 5 beers I'm getting and what 5 beers Rob's getting and what 5 beers Wendy's getting, so that we all get 15 different beers and then we can all try all little 15. Like, I'm just over it.
I listened to that. Sorry, Ken. I listened to that thing Rob put together recently with all the different discussions on the flights. And I have to say,
is it just a 30-minute cut of me hating on flights?
No, well, it's that and Wendy loving on flights. And I have been Wendy. Alex and I have gone to so many places and sometimes dragged friends in and gone, right, you're going to get these and I'm going to get these and we're going to do everything. Yeah, you're right. It does work, Wendy.
It's okay. I'm not upset. I'm not mad. But like, I think I'm kind of, and I'm just over wanting to try every single beer. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've gone from place to place to place. And if it wasn't for Untapped, I wouldn't remember any of the beers. But in reality, I remember a lot of the beers that I've had now that I don't use Untapped anymore. Like, I remember more beers that I've had simply because I don't use Untapped anymore. Because I'll remember the style, I remember the venue, and I'll know to get it later. Or I'll know, like, Archival, another Grand Rapids brewery, like, they make really good German style beers. Like, this guy's Kolsch is out of this goddamn world. And I will know, hey, I'm going to go there, and that's the kind of beers I'm going to get because I know that's the style that, I mean, he knocks other styles out of the park, I'm sure, but that's just not what I look for. So therefore I don't look for it. But yeah, so yeah, Rob did put together that greatest hits of me hating on
it was comedy gold, I tell you.
Beer flights, I'm sure. Gary McCray in Facebook says Hibiki pours, yes. Over here in Michigan, Ale Mary's will do short pours too of whiskey, which is out of Royal Oak. I actually, during the peak of COVID, December 2020, not the peak, but a peak of COVID, I got a 2-ounce dram to go because you can't find Hibiki 17 on the shelves anywhere. It is not.
How does it work? Do they hand you, like, what does it come in? How do they give you that to go?
I mean, honest to God, it like almost like a skinny vitamin can.
Oh,
like,
God. I'm taking my medicine, officer.
They capped it, they taped it shut, and that's it. So yeah, they had like a 2-ounce dram pour that I literally drove in. The person came out to my parking spot, handed it to me, and I left.
When I grew up in Cincinnati, we had the drive-through beer stores.
Oh, those are always fun to take friends when we're going to like Put in Bay or something like that. Do you know about drive-in beer stores, Greg?
No, but I want to.
Yeah, you just drive in, you order your beer, and they put it in the trunk of your car.
Yeah, it's
Rob, you keep blowing my mind. You introduced me to Jungle Gyms, and now this.
Do you guys have party stores, is what we call them here, which is basically a store that serves beer, spirits, wine, snacks like chips, dip, basics like soda, water, that kind of stuff.
I mean, that's every liquor store here. They've got everything.
So yeah, we in the Midwest, at least, we call them party stores. So your liquor store has that type of a thing. So imagine, if you will, just like a liquor store, but we just built a car length way that you could just drive through.
Oh.
And you tell someone everything you want, and they put it in your car, and you pay, and you drive off. You don't have to get out of your car or anything.
Would you like fries with that? Yes, yes, I would.
My brother and I used to bike through them, and we'd buy candy.
Yeah. Bike through. Oh, that's cool. I've always. That used to be the running joke that you do drive through KFC, but no one's ever done that yet. No one I know, anyway. Bike through. Sorry, bike through.
Bike through KFC. Yeah,
yeah,
that's more too.
That's
You're really running a risk there because cars are not amused.
No,
it is a safety concern, which is why a lot of people in the States, at least, don't allow you not in a car to go through a drive-through, either on foot, bicycle, I should say, or anything else. Yeah. Going back, we're going to go a little bit longer. I was kind of hoping for Dan to hop on just because Dan's the only person who's been to New Zealand and he's been there
I was
like
looking forward to asking him some stuff about his
eight
travels.
times in the last year. Yeah, his internet went down. So we just got a message 10 minutes ago that there's still no internet, unfortunately. So I'm going to try to get him into the chat here to maybe ask the questions in the chat. That way we could kind of be a vessel for him. But going back to is there, so you said you want to come back to Michigan, you want to hit Kalamazoo. Is there any other beer cities in the States or any other countries that you kind of want to hit to just check
other
out?
countries would take a whole podcast, but yes, cities in the States. I've still never been.
We've got time. There are no rules.
Yeah, right. I've still never been to North Carolina. So, and there's so much good stuff there. Seattle was, we were literally there for less than 36 hours, and it was rushed. We were staying in Ballard, so we got to a lot of the places. We got a mutual, Rob knows the mutual friend of ours as well. He's another one on our Discord server, the Untapped Discord server. And he drove us around. We got to Holy Mountain, which is cool. There's a Kiwi brewing there. And of course, we got up to Bellingham, which is about as far north in Washington as you can get before you're Canadian. And that was, for what I thought was a small town, that was amazing. Other place I'd like to get to, I'd like to spend more time in New York. That was a flying visit as well. And they were historically never really a beer city. And they were still just kind of growing into it. It was about, 2015 when we were there, Alex? Yeah, sorry, I've got my archivist standing in the kitchen here. Flashing signals. Yeah, flashing signals.
New York, I found hard to get around from craft beer place to craft beer place, but yeah, it's doable.
There's a lot of walking, but that's all right. I like it. And being a big guy, the more I can walk, the more I can drink. I'm just trying to think where else have we had on our list for a long time, Alex? Oh yeah, Boston. I don't know if it's considered a beer city. Anywhere in New England, really. I'd like to, much as leave the hazy thing, but I'd love to get up there and just try some of that stuff fresh and see how it is.
Yeah, Portland, Maine is a really nice a really nice place to go. Burlington, Vermont is a nice place to go. What's nice about a lot of these places is, if you go to I went to Maine Beer Co. And of course I went at the worst time ever because it was 8 IPAs and a lager. And if you listen to the show, you know very well that I do love my Maine Beer Co., but I love Mean Old Tom. I love Zoe. I actually got 3 bottles right behind me of Mean Old Tom ready to drink it another day. So you're going to go to a lot of places that are going to have a lot of IPAs and a lot of hazies. But even some places, I went to a place that it was 8 kettle sours, 8 IPAs, and a Kolsch. And that Kolsch was easily one of the best beers I had that entire weekend. But when you go to those places, you still get to enjoy, even when we went to former guest Alchemist. I went to Alchemist and they had, lagers that you can drink, even though they're known for Heady Topper, which is their, hazy IPA. So yeah, New England, you're going to have to drive around no matter what. It's even worse than Grand Rapids.
The phobia of driving on the wrong side of the road or correct side of the road, which, we're the ones that are weird.
Boston has transit, so you can do that.
Yeah, Boston does have the MTA. I did once get too drunk to understand the MTA and had an Uber back to my hotel. But yeah, New Boston, you'll be able to get around. But even if you go up to Portland, yeah, you can hit 1 or 2 places. And then if you hit Allagash, there's 4 breweries across the street. So it's a great spot to finish your night where you can then, Uber back or Lyft back to your hotel. So yeah, the New England area, there's definitely a lot of great spots to go. Michigan here, I tell you what, and a lot of people will definitely agree with me just because it is the best. September and the Upper Peninsula are UP Beer Festival. It's a hike. You have to drive there. Unless you're flying to Muskegon, you want to pay that extra money to fly into that small airport. But Muskegon, great area, great city. Not Muskegon, sorry, Marquette. Muskegon's on the west side of the state, Marquette. But the beer festival is on the Ore Dock, so it's right on Lake Superior. you think like 70, beautiful weather, you don't need a coat, a light coat at best. Probably 60 to 70 breweries, 500 to 600 different beers. It's easily one of the best beer festivals in the world, I'll say, because I've been to GABF, I've been to Extreme Beer Fest, I've been to a handful of these bigger US brewery events. You can't beat the location, the beer, the friendliness, and everything like that. So I would say the next time you're planning a Michigan trip, if you could plan it around the UP Beer Festival, 100% go. The other one is Burning Foot, which is a great beer festival. But it's a festival. It's on Lake Michigan. It's on the beach. So you got to trudge through sand. So if you want to talk about walking, you're walking really hard on that.
Yeah, that sounds great.
It's a blast. We went 2 years ago, and there was a bunch. So it's a concert too. So there's a huge stage. They had a bunch of bands that you know of, but you probably don't know more than a couple songs, like Filter, Plain White Tees, Lit. Everlast was supposed to be there, but he got COVID. So he couldn't show. So they replaced them, I think, with Plain White Tees. There was a Limp Bizkit cover band there.
I feel like there's a Limp Bizkit cover band playing right now everywhere in the world.
Michigan's got like that Muskegon area's got like a Limp Bizkit, a Korn, a System of a Down cover band, like, and they tour with each other and people will go see them. So it's definitely a blast. Wendy in the Slack, so I can't bring it up there, is saying New Zealand hops are all over the place. What are your favorite New Zealand hops to use?
I am tragically old school. I still love Nelson Sauvin. You guys, it makes me laugh. You guys all just call it Nelson, which makes me think you're just talking about the city. I don't know if you know, but nearly all the New Zealand hops are named for a small town, a village, or a city in the region where they're all growing at the top of the South Island. So I'm just trying to think of the, Riwaka, Motueka, all of those are multi-place names for areas where the hops are growing, but some of them don't even grow hops and they get named for that. I quite like Rako, which is a lesser known one. It's got a really dank, almost blue cheese type character to it. It sounds awful, but it works really well in things like a barley wine where you just want some hop complexity and something interesting, but you don't think of it as a hoppy beer. Well, I guess some American barley wines are, but I'm thinking of English ones. What else? Southern Cross is one that I don't think gets enough attention. Pacific Jade is another one I really like. And of course, Nectaron blew my mind when it came out. It was just like, oh, okay, that is really, really amazing. I should use it more, but it's so expensive. The irony of me being a New Zealand brewer is that I use mostly American hops in my beers.
All right. Well, as we end this evening, thank you so much for joining us on this Saturday afternoon for you, Friday night for us. We kind of end every show with a fun little question, so I'm going to pass it to Rob. Rob, what is your final question for Greg over here?
Have the Cubs hit maybe next year yet?
I am really sad to say I think it's going that way, especially after losing to the Reds today. Oh, I mean, I don't know if you saw it, but the way they lost, I won't.
Was it very Cubs?
It was 100% a Cub moment. Oh, I don't know why. Sometimes I don't know why I love this team. They just make me suffer. What
got you to be a Cubs fan?
Spending time in Chicago and just the culture of people say Cubs fans are annoying, and they're probably right, but there's just so much love that they have for their city and their team. And as someone from a completely different country, you just can't help but be caught up in that and kind of embrace it. And everywhere you go, of course, if there's a Cubs game on, not only is it just on, but you walk into a sports bar anywhere and there'll be baseball on if it's baseball season, and people are kind of pretending to watch it. In Chicago, not only are they watching it, they're screaming at it, and it's just, how can you not love that? So yeah, that was my team.
Wrigley is still an amazing stadium to visit. It's just so unique.
Yeah,
Wrigleyville's great. The next time you go to Chicago, though, I would suggest making sure you go to this bar called Delilah's. I will tell everyone there, if you're a spirits guy, this is the kind of bar where they sell 1 ounce drams of everything, and they'll give you like a book, and it's almost as big as like a karaoke book, like with the amount of songs that you can, or amount of beers or whiskeys you can drink. This is the place to go. So you can get like, when I used to go to Chicago for work, I would go there. I would have, 3 fun, new stuff that I never had before. And then I'll go and I'll drink, something cheap with an old style and enjoy. So yeah, Delilah's in Chicago. It's just south of Wrigleyville. So it's close enough to where you can go catch a game over there. My final question for you came from the actual our pre-show where we learned about you. Rob gave us some information, and I need some help from you, and I'm hoping you can help me. I need to know how to pronounce this.
Holy crap. Okay, let me try.
For those of you who are listening to the show, we brought up a hill that's in southern Hawke's Bay, New Zealand, south of Waipukuru.
Waipukuro.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah. All right. I've got this right precisely once in my life, and I was drunk. Let's see what I can do.
I've seen you had a few beers today, so maybe we
won't know if you're wrong.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's true too.
Yeah. Taumata whakatangi hanga ko o tamatea turipuka ka shit. Piki maunga horonu kupuko wai kupuko kai whenua ki tana tahu. I need a beer.
So it translates as the summit where Tamatea, the man with the big knees, the slider, climber of mountains, the land swallower who traveled about, played his kawau to his loved one.
That dude had an agent, I tell you. Don't forget to mention his knees,
Well, obviously we do have a lot of Americans here, but if they find themselves in New Zealand, where can they find you?
They can find us at 34 Mahana Road. There's another good Māori name for you. Te Rapa, which is a suburb of Hamilton, or Kirikiriroa, as it's known. Since we're doing Māori names now, that's... Please come. Please say hi. Reach out. I'm active on social media. Well, I'm not, but the brewery is. And they'll let me know. It's usually my bar manager. And she'll let me know if someone wants to come and hang out. I'd love to see you. We had some cool Michiganders in earlier in the year. I think I wrote their name down somewhere. They were from Ann Arbor. They were from Ann Arbor, Michigan. Shout out to Stein and Jeff Hausner. I think they're associated with Five Shores Brewing in Beulah. So if they're out there, hi, they're awesome.
What were their names again?
Stein and Jeff Hausner.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on out. Yeah, Beulah. So Ann Arbor, I'm going to show you my Michigander right here. There's Michigan. Ann Arbor is about right here. Beulah is about right here.
Oh, cool. So
it's definitely a hike for sure. But they do serve great beer over there. So Bruce, the Beer City Brusader. Oh, got your Grand Rapids garb over there.
I drank enough to get that. Yep.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for us here at the Better on Draft podcast. Go follow us on our social medias at Better on Draft on Twitch, Facebook, Instagram. We even have it on Tapped. That just tells you everything that we drank. YouTube, Kick, X, TikTok. Yes, we're on TikTok. We're everywhere. And no matter what you think of your beer, we think it's Better on Draft. Have a good night.